was like, I'd really like to have a monkey. Mind you, I have absolutely no plan of how to deal with this monkey. Like, if I buy him, like I'm in Afghanistan, it's not like I can bring him home. But all those things are far from my mind. I'm not thinking rationally at all. I'm just thinking about having a monkey. Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to Heart of a Volunteer Veteran Podcast. This is your co-host and guest, Seth One Shot, One Kill Rodenbaugh. Join us today on Saga episode 029. Spirit up, head down.
All right. Hey, Sniper, where you at, brother?
I am in Denver, Colorado right now.
Oh shit. Well, I'm glad they got technology, man, so we could have you on the show. What's going on, brother?
Right. Nothing. Just living the dream. It's a beautiful day. It's sunny. I think it's supposed to be like 85 today, so we're still enjoying a little bit more of summer before we start getting snow and all that fun, cold stuff.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I'm excited for the snow there in Colorado because I just washed my snowboard equipment and I'm getting ready to send my board off to get the edge done for the winter. So I'll be up.
Nice.
I'll be up your way, man, and I'll even bring my my Afro stocking cap. I'll wear it around and Elvis sunglasses. It's a good time.
I don't think I can picture you with hair as long as I've known you. I don't think I can picture that. So that'll be the closest thing I think I'll probably ever see to it.
No, I have hair. This is just a stocking cap that has a bigger afro built into it.
That's super cool.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Hey,
well, so people think about Denver, and they either think one of two things: either I'm in the city or I'm in the Rocky Mountains, and I'm like somewhere in the middle. I am literally about, I want to say 3 blocks away from the end of Denver to the west. And there's a highway like 2 blocks away from me. If I jump on that highway, 3 exits away, I'm in the mountains. So I'm like right on the edge of like being up there where like we can go ride. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I know the area you're referring to.
Cool.
Yeah. I like that.
Very
cool. So what's going on, man? What's been going on this morning?
This morning, just the usual dad hectic morning. So little man Cannon is now in pre-kindergarten. It's the last year I have to pay for school, which is like super cool. He went to preschool preparatory a couple years ago, preschool last year, and he just started his pre-kindergarten course. So got him to school, did some registration and some forms and stuff for, I like to volunteer to school. So we did a bunch of field trip stuff. And then I'm back home for a few hours and then back to pick him up and spend the rest of the day with him.
What's your week typically looks like, man? Like you train. I know you do a lot of training and coaching and mentoring.
Yeah. So Monday through Thursday, Cannon has school. So from about 9:30 in the morning until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I do some school. I'll try and either hit the gym, hit the kickboxing gym, hit the jiu-jitsu gym, hit something at least once early in the day. And then a couple nights a week, me and my fiance try and do like a private training session with our kickboxing coach. And then, besides that, the other nights I just try to jump in when it's a good time. And sometimes me and Cannon go to a kids course. So he does kids jiu-jitsu, and sometimes he does kids like Muay Thai or kickboxing. So all the places that he goes, they just basically make me an assistant instructor to their kids class. So just whenever we drop in, I help work the class, and he gets to come in. And so he's getting a nice, well-rounded, future world champion lifestyle.
I like it, man.
Right.
I like it. No, it's good, for wrestling and all that kind of stuff for kids. It's good for them, to understand their bodies and how they move.
Absolutely.
And then self-discipline, So
Yeah. My best friend actually runs a kids wrestling program called Olympic Wrestling, and he's the assistant coach to an Olympic medalist. So they will start, I believe, in November. Cannon is finally of age, so he gets to jump into this like insanely good wrestling program for kids, but not quite there yet. We got a month or two left to hold off. Then he gets to start wrestling.
Now, so what's that look like for kids, man? It's like, headgear and all that kind of stuff, like mandatory, or are they not even at that point yet?
They are mandatory headgear all the way until through high school, at least. Wrestling was never like the thing I did when I was a kid. So like one thing I'm hands off on, it's that.
Right.
But again, literally like my best friend here in Denver is running this program. So it's just perfect. And Ken loves him. He's a super cool guy. So it's like a great fit. I think everything when it has to do with kids doing it, you can't like push them to do something they don't like to do. That's why I don't focus on one thing with in particular. Like I'm not like, you're going to go to jiu-jitsu every single night of the week and you're going to work on this. I'm like, if you want to go tonight, we're going to go tonight. If you want to go to kickboxing tonight, we'll go to the kickboxing gym. Yeah. It's just until they start getting a little bit deeper, I'm not much into pushing him in one direction. It's kind of like what he likes, and then just, pour some water on the plant when it needs it. So
yeah, just having fun with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, hey man, share with the listeners, old Seth Rodenbaugh, sniper. Where are you from, man, in the world, and how'd you get to where you are now? Let's talk about that.
Okay, so I was born in a small town, Nebraska, Holdridge. I actually still go back and forth, except for I don't go back to my hometown very often. There's a really small town, probably 30 or 40 minutes away, called Beaver City, and we have a small family farm there. And so, yeah, I know you're laughing. I read this article and it had like top 10 most inappropriate named towns, and Beaver City was like 3 or 4. And I was like, yeah, it's like a town of like 300 people, I want to say. So we have a farm 3.5 miles outside of there. Cool. I love going to the farm, man. Like, it's just, I don't hear anything, I get to sleep good. It's quiet. We actually don't even have a farmhouse there. We have a couple of fifth wheels there. My godmother does. And that's about it. I mean, they have full power. They got satellite dish. We can watch football games and all that fun stuff. But other than that, it's just like a R&R, and I can leave my front doorstep and I can be there in about 4.5 hours. So I can pop down there for 2 or 3 days, come right back. I can go down there for a day if I really want to, So I go back there a lot. So I grew up in this small town. I think we were talking about this earlier, because you had this exact same situation as mine. I was like, I always tell people when they're like, I'm from a small town. I'm like, how small? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, do you have a Walmart or do you not have a Walmart? And if they have a Walmart, I'm like, well, either you're like a truck stop town or you're a bigger town than me, because we didn't have a Walmart, you know? So
no, my town doesn't
pretty
have,
small town.
My town doesn't. It's local. Everything's local. And I got to tell you, man, I think the whole sniper thing, that's like, small farm. That was me, man, just shooting out there, getting after it, growing up. Yeah,
absolutely. And we can shoot on the farm whenever we want. And we usually shoot every time we're out there, something,
Nice.
So, yeah, it's good to pull a trigger every once in a while.
Well, hey, man, what is this? What's the title of this thing? Spirits up, heads down. What is that?
So my grandfather was probably, I didn't spend every day of my life with him, but I spent a lot of time with him, and he's probably the most influential person to how I became a man. There's certain people influence certain aspects of your life, but me as a whole, he was definitely like that. Like, it just everything where it came to how you deal with family, how you deal with life, all these different things. And right before I went to Afghanistan, I took a trip just solo, not with my mom, nobody. I just wanted to go to the farm with my grandparents for a little bit. They used to raise bulls, break horses, farm. I think he had some insane, like 27 patents of things he invented. He was a super cool guy, Navy veteran. And I was about to get on my motorcycle. I did it as a motorcycle ride when I went to see him. So I was about to throw my leg over the bike, and he grabbed me and he's like, keep your head down, your spirits high. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, no matter how bad it is, just stay positive, keep your spirits up. He's like, but keep your head down because I want to see you again.
Yeah.
So I kind of used that not just for that deployment, but I used that when I was talking to guys. Like, I think I did pretty good through an entire deployment. I never really got homesick and I never really got down. I had fun. Mm-hmm. I played. I jumped at every opportunity when I was deployed. And at the same time, I kept my head on a swivel and my head down because, I wasn't trying to not come back. So I used that both when I was talking to other guys and as like a life lesson down the road. Now I'm like, no matter how bad it is, just put your head down, keep your spirits up and drive through, drive on. Yeah. So
do you have a lot of, you come from a pretty big military family?
Oh man. So one side of my family, my mom's side of the family, literally like almost everybody. Wow. My uncle was a Ranger in Vietnam. My grandfather was in the Navy. We had my aunt was in the Air Force, uncle in the Air. I mean, just littered with every branch you can imagine, doing all sorts of different jobs. We actually have a female pilot, Air Force pilot in the family. Sweet. Or she's out now, but yeah, it's a ton. So I was just doing what everybody else did, so when it came to that side of the family.
So you joined because your grandfather and everyone else, like just family tradition, or was there something else that kind of pushed you?
So I always like. I'll lead you to this with a little bit of a funny story. A few years back, my mom gave me all my old baby pictures, some, scrapbooks, a bunch of old stuff from when I was a kid. And I opened it up and I was like flipping through and there was like all this old artwork of mine. And dude, all it literally was different versions of me drawing the American flag, Captain America. I made a few different, I would draw the country by state with a flag behind it. Just every single one is patriotic as you could possibly be. And then, I wasn't really I always made pretty good money when I was a kid. My first job at 15 years old, I was wearing a suit and making really good money. Right. So it wasn't I need a job, but I woke up September 11th and I saw all this craziness going on, And I've already been talking to, multiple branches of military, and so I had a recruiter in my phone to call for any branch I wanted. I was, really weighing my options and thinking about that. And September 12th, the day after, I was on the phone trying to do every piece of paper I could to ship out as quick as possible. I just felt like it was my duty, both to, as, an American patriot and to my family, I'm always here to stand up for somebody getting bullied, and I'm always ready to stand up for my country when they need it. So September 12th, the day after, man, I was doing everything I could. I shipped out October 3rd, October 2nd, October 3rd. So I was gone just a few weeks later.
Hell yeah. Well, man, if you've listened to the episodes, there's a special place in my heart for service members like you, man. So my hat's off to you for knowing that you were gonna be in the middle of it. There's no way you could think that we weren't. Everyone was talking about it. Yeah, hats off to you, brother. Hey, so how were you prepared for for basic mentally and physically? What do you think?
So physically, I was kind of lucky. I was always kind of a gifted athlete. I have a great metabolism. I've always just been athletic. I didn't do any specific sport great besides fight, but I was okay. So I showed up. I went through basic pretty easy. I shouldn't say that, but it really was. It really wasn't. I didn't feel like it was that hard. And, a lot of the drill sergeants along the way were like, hey, if you're one of those ones that's getting through this and it's not killing you, I'm telling you, when you get to your unit, it's going to be worse. And I'm glad they said that because, I got to my unit and it was a hell of a lot different. But, basic wasn't that bad. I was in 258, House of Pain, loved it. House of Pain. It's funny, my boxing gym's actually called House of Pain now.
I like that, man. House of Pain just sounds
and
good.
So every time like throws up House of Pain, it just reminds me. I'm like, yeah, that's you guys are the building blocks of my boxing, and this is the there was the building blocks of me being a soldier was that for basic,
Hell yeah.
But yeah, basic was cool. Got through it. I originally signed up. Army usually gives you duty choice, and I originally signed up for Korea, and I was dating this girl at the time, and I was like, man, I'm going to go to Korea. And she's like, well, that's a year and a half apart. Don't know if this is going to work. She's like, what else can you do? And I was like, well, they also said I could switch over to New York or Hawaii. She's like, fucking go to Hawaii. I'll come out there. So girls steer you real easily. So I decided to go to Hawaii, and then, went to Schofield Barracks, and I spent my entire career there. I signed every piece of paper I could to stay there. Yeah. So, yeah.
Who were you with there at Schofield?
So I originally was with Alpha Company 235 Cacti. I was in Alpha Company, I want to say, for a week and a half, not very long. A week and a half in, they opened up scout selection, and I was one of those few guys that walked in with 300 PT score. Mm-hmm. And then, on the extended scale, I had like some insane PT scores, like 400 or some crap. And they immediately were like, well, that's the number one prerequisite. Usually you have to be a PFC, but go to selection. And I ran through selection and jumped immediately into the recon platoon, scout snipers. And then I spent most all of my 235 career in that section, the recon platoons.
What deployments do you go on?
OEF 3, 04, 05, Afghanistan. And then besides training ops, training deployments, that was it. But my only combat deployment was that one. And it was long and fun, but that was it. You
want to talk about that any?
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
So I, people talk about like, oh, be careful with this veteran. Like, you don't want to talk about certain things with them. And man, I think that's like the best thing we can do, for me at least,
Yeah.
Like, talk about it, not just for me, but for other people, because there's so many civilians out there that they watch a fucking movie, man, and they're like, that's what they're doing. I'm like, right. No, it's not. That's not. So I actually love doing it, both for like my own therapy, to talk about it, and then also to educate people that don't know, or to like, get closer with brothers that are around when we talk about it. So anyway, yeah. So, about a week before we deployed, it was funny. I spent my whole, private 2, PFC, specialist, and then right before I got my E5, was right when we were going to deploy. And like a week and a half before, they're like, you need line time. And I was like, okay, cool. What do you mean? I spent my whole career as a scout sniper, and they're like, we're going to send you a line. So I went down to Bravo Company. Yeah, I know. I was like, what am I going to do? You want me to do what? I know how to pull a trigger and look through a scope. Like, it's just so different, Mm-hmm. Right before deployment, this is cool. So went down the line, and they actually gave me some options, and I really wanted to go to Bravo Company. That was my first choice. Even though I'd been in Alpha Company, I'd been there for a week, so it wasn't like I had attachments anywhere. I had some brothers there, and there was some good leadership in there at the time, and I just thought it was a good place to go, and I got what I wanted, which we don't always get in the Army, but I would like to say I got mostly what I wanted my whole career, so I got to go what I wanted. Went with Bravo Company. We hit the ground running, man. Went into Kandahar. We were in Kandahar for a day or two for, getting ammo and getting fitted and doing some paperwork to be in country. And they were like, hey, let's go out to this fire base. We're just gonna run patrols out of it for like 48 hours and we'll come back to Kandahar. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we get out to Firebase Lagman, and my squad leader he actually went on the convoy before us, right? So we came in, he did those right seat ride stuff. So, we're unloading off the trucks on our bags, and he's like, hey, you guys said you want to do everything you possibly could while you're here. Every patrol is available, every mission, everything. Now we can either do two things. We can either go pick out our tent and put our gear there and probably get a good spot, or we can leave our gear sitting right here in front of the TOC and get on that truck and do the first patrol out of this fire base. And I was like, let's fucking go, man. And so we literally like jumped from one truck to the other truck. And we were basically delivering a squad for security for a special forces outpost. And it was probably a 4 or 5 hour ride, man. We hit halfway in. Mind you, this is my first time in country. Yeah. And it's the very first patrol out of our fire base. And for our company, about halfway in was my first IED.
Yeah.
And thank God none of us were like super injured. I mean, literally we drove over a remote detonated rocket. It shot up and then it hit the armor directly underneath my butt cheeks and it blew up behind me. So it threw me, but it happened at the exact same time a van full of local nationals was going by us. Mm-hmm. So some of those local nationals did not make it. Yeah. And we were basically bumps and bruises and thrown out of our truck, and our limbs were there and we were good. So I consider that a blessing.
You remember where you guys were going? Was that Wilson, Fob Wilson? If it was 4 hours away from Lagman, it sounds like it was Wilson.
I don't think that's it.
No? Okay.
Yeah, it was like a little, it wasn't even I don't even know what to call it. It was like the littlest, it looked like a campsite, man. And it was like one group of SF, one group, that was it. Yeah. Like, so what they had is like, they couldn't even run their own like night watch. Basically they didn't have enough people. So we would just, every couple of weeks we would rotate a squad out there to help them out a little bit. So it was a regular run for us out of Lagman at the time. But yeah, I actually consider that a blessing. Everybody's like, you consider an IED a blessing? And I was like, yeah, I was in country for almost 13 months. Like the very first patrol woke me up real quick.
Yeah.
I didn't have that lackadaisical, I've spent 3 months here and I haven't heard a gunshot, so I'm just doing the movements, man. My head was on a swivel from that day until the day I left. And I think it's because of that, I was not playing around. I was like, dude, you guys don't realize something will happen, And I think it's because of, thank God none of us were injured real bad. And two, like, I think it woke up everybody in that truck.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, Seth, I think you went to basic at 21, right?
So I turned 21 in basic, which is kind of a funny story. But yeah, I joined at 20, and about a month into basic, I turned 21. So my 21st rah birthday party was, in the front leaning rest.
Yeah.
So,
well, dude, I'm just thinking of like, this is the level of maturity for a first deployment. That's where success lies. You know what I'm saying? You could have a young leader that's young in age, or you could have an older leader.
Right.
That's been trained. And I think that kind of works out a little bit better sometimes.
Right. And I was kind of happy I didn't have to go to my first deployment as a private. I can't even imagine how hard that would be. Like, you're still trying to figure out how to do your daily functions, and then you're, in country. I was lucky enough to be a senior specialist. I'd been in good platoons with good leadership, and, I knew I was doing somewhat, but, I wasn't fresh in the Army. I've been in for a few years on my first deployment,
Yeah. Well, what's crazy, man, is you talk about your grandpa saying spirits up. I honestly don't think, man, I've ever seen you down. I think the only time I ever saw you down was when you got, remember when you got your wisdom teeth pulled out?
Oh, man, yeah.
I think you got like a dry socket or something like that.
I got severe dry socket, and I'll tell you what I did. And I don't know if you know the real story about why I got dry socket, but I always have this philosophy on life. You're not supposed to do two things wrong at once. Mm-hmm. But if you do one thing wrong, worst case scenario, you get told not to do it again. But don't do two things, right? So he told me, they give you that 72 hours off, and it was like backed up to a 4-day weekend. So I was like, you guys are going to fucking ruin my 4-day weekend. And I get 72 hours off. And they're like, don't drink anything carbonated. Don't drink alcohol. Don't do, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, they said, don't do two things wrong. So I bought a case of beer and I opened the entire thing so it'd go flat, so it wouldn't be carbonated.
Oh my God.
So, I have all these fucking drugs in me, and I was like, I'm just going to sit around the house and drink some beer. And fucking like 3 days later, I was like, man, that doesn't look like it's healing right.
Oh, man.
And so I go in and they're like, this is severe dry socket. Like, I literally had to go into dental for an entire month every day at like 5 or 5:30 in the morning for them to redo my dressings for an entire month. Like Saturdays and Sundays in emergency dental sick call, I still had to go for like a month. It was awful.
Dude, that's nuts, bro. I didn't know all that. I just knew that.
Well, I didn't volunteer that to people at the time. I didn't want to be like, hey, I stupidly did this myself.
Well, the thing is, man, I remember that happening to you. And I think the only reason I remember that is there was somebody from like Charlie Company it happened to too, but it wasn't like a Joe. It was like an NCO.
Yeah.
It had happened at the same time. And so the question was, are we not telling these soldiers how to take care of themselves after they have surgeries? And I think that's the reason why it stuck with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's crazy, man.
Mine was more just me being stupid, but hey,
dude, at least you got it knocked out before deployment, because it would have been nuts there.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I've heard of people getting stuff like that done during deployment. It's not fun.
No, deployment's enough to deal with without added headache, So yeah, that was some entertaining stuff. But hey, so I want to flip this just a little bit.
Go for it, man. Do it.
So I was telling you, certain people influence individual aspects of your life, right? And I said, as my overall influences who I am as a man, my grandfather, right? But you haven't talked about yourself a ton on this show, and you know this and I know this, but I was in the recon platoon before you.
Right.
And so I was on a gun, I was trying to unfuck myself as a sniper without having another sniper really around, hardly.
Right.
And I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think you came straight from or close to straight from being an instructor at sniper school. Am I correct?
Yeah, I left from there and came to Hawaii. Yeah.
Yeah. So you literally walked in and started asking me questions, and I'm like, I don't know. like I've never been to sniper school. I don't hardly know what I'm doing. I'm trying to chip my way through FMs and, reading stuff, and I don't really know. And, you've had an insane career, man. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you started off as a Marine. Am I right?
Yeah, I did, man. Started off in the Corps. Yeah.
Yeah. And switched over to Army, and then did a lot of cool stuff in the Army. You were an Army sniper school instructor. That's like a big thing. That's hard to get that position. You have to not just be a random guy that was on a sniper rifle or maybe went to school. You have to be on the top tier of those guys. And so I was lucky enough to have probably the best sniper mentor that the Army had to offer, and I appreciate that. So,
well, hey man, I appreciate that too. I came from, I'm actually going to do an episode, talk about this here, probably here in the next month or so, but dude, an excellent cadre, man, there at the sniper school. I mean, there really should be no doubt with anybody out there, the level of proficiency, knowledge and skills that, these guys were putting out from that school, man, before I got there, during it, and even today. Amazing level of sniper. So great school, man. Great school.
Absolutely. And I also, to add to that, I don't even think there's a way for us to count how many times I called you while I was in school.
Right.
I was like, bro, I don't know. I mean, I got through everything, and I was, in the upper part of it. I think I was actually like number 2 or 3 in honor grad runnings for points, and I was 2 or 3 for top shot. Like I was definitely the top of my class, not number 1, but I was at the top for like both things we look at, and there were so many times when I was like, oh man, like, I don't know if I'm going to pass this, and over half of my class failed, like way over half of my class. It was, I think 44 people showed up, and I think 8 people graduated.
Yeah. Classes get small sometimes.
They get real small, real quick. I think we went from 44 to 32 after the first week. Yeah. And it was just like, I was constantly thinking, I was like, man, I'm going to fail this, and I'm never going to get this slot again. Like I can't let this happen. So I was calling you all the time. And, one of your buddies was still there as an instructor, and he definitely helped me out whenever I needed it. And you were always there to talk to. So, it's cool to be able to do something like this with somebody that definitely influenced probably the coolest thing in my Army career. Like when people are like, what'd you do for the military? I don't talk about anything else. I'm a U.S. Army sniper, because it's like the baddest ass shit ever. I don't care about anything else. Am I airborne? Yeah. Did I go air assault? Yeah. Did I do all these other things? Yeah. But when like somebody asks, I'm like, I was a U.S. Army sniper, because that's like so fucking cool, man. So literally the coolest thing, I think, when I talk about being in the military, you were my mentor for that. So anyway, thank you. And
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Next best thing to be in there, sniping.
Right. Absolutely. So anyway, that was,
so
go ahead.
So let's talk about the LURS, the trip over to LURS.
Yeah. So,
or lead into that, actually.
That's
a good lead in.
Yeah, we'll lead into that. So, I told you about my first IED. My second one was a little bit worse. A local police chief literally drove up and put a couple of his cars with their brights on at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And, with our night vision, that just washes them out, so we couldn't see a damn thing. They were kind of corrupt they were digging the IED like directly in front of our main gate, basically. Yeah. So, like the day or two before, I was on a patrol, and one of my buddies, we rolled the truck, and his leg was banged up. So my squad was like, I think my whole squad, there was like 3 of us. Okay. So they're like, Seth, you got to drive a truck. And I was like, all right, so they dig this IED. Nobody could see it. And then, we're trying to figure out how we're going to do this patrol, and we're down a bunch of guys, and, they're like, you need to drive a truck. And I was like, man, I am not driving a truck. Every truck I've driven out of the wire, I'm not a driver. Like every time I drive a truck out, because we need somebody to, the truck does not come back.
Right.
Okay, every single time. I totaled 7 Humvees, bro. Like rolled them, drove through a mud hut, blew a couple motors. Like, I mean, I had some like really bad luck with driving. So I totaled, like, drove out of the wire, never drove back. 7 trucks. I'm like, can we just like get to the point where we realize it's bad juju to let me drive a fucking truck? And they're like, dude, nobody else is driving a truck. You need to drive a truck. It's just a patrol locally. Like, drive it. I'm like, God damn, I'm all upset. Fine. So I get in the truck, man, and I was still turning the switch to like IRs. Mm-hmm. I was working the head beams. We were that close to the main gate. Like I was still like adjusting things in the truck, and boom, got blown up really, really, really bad. I know you've seen some pictures of it, because they actually, that truck is a monument at Fire Base Lagman. But, I was pretty rough. Hernandez, he was really, really, really rough, and everybody else was banged up pretty good, So they air evac'd us both out immediately. And, I was in Kandahar Hospital, and quick little snippet. It was pretty funny. I kept like taking off, man. Like I was like laying there. I was like, look, you guys aren't actually doing anything to me. I don't have anything that you can like patch up. I later found out I fractured a vertebrae and did a whole bunch of other stuff. But, in reality, if anything took a hit, and my BDUs were or my DCUs were destroyed there, and my weapon was turned inside out. Like the upper and lower receiver were peeled back, like Hulk just grabbed it and peeled it. So I didn't have a weapon or anything. I was in a damn hospital gown, and I kept just taking off and doing stuff. And they hand receipted me to another soldier. So
that's an old trick there.
An old trick, right?
That's old school.
So Eric Sprang, I told you one of my guys had busted up his knee. So he was just sitting there basically waiting for, he needed to get his knee looked at, but he wasn't in the hospital. He was basically sitting in one of the hooches just hanging out. And he kept hanging out with me, because he knew I was, a click or two away at the hospital. So he'd come in and bullshit with me. And finally they were like, do you think you can keep him under control? And he's like, yeah, he just doesn't want to sit in the hospital. So they fucking hand receipted me to him. And so I come out of the Kandahar hospital in a fucking hospital gown because all my uniforms were like bloody and destroyed and cut up. So I'm in a hospital gown and I had to go get a new uniform. So hung out with Sprang for a day or so, and then the battalion commander grabbed me and he's like, hey, look, he's like, here's the thing. He's like, your mid-tour leave is coming up, and he's like, I don't want to send you back to duty now. And he's like, so why don't I just send you early, give you some extra R&R? Your mid-tour leave will be a little longer than everybody's. And I was like, okay. He's like, when you come back, we'll be ready to go. I was like, all right, cool. And I gotta throw this one more thing in there about getting blown up. So just because, God, I am kind of a shithead sometimes. So, and one of the first things they did was, call your parents, call your family, call your wife or whatever. I didn't have a wife. So, I called my mom and dad. And when I got a hold of my mom, I can't remember if I either left her a voicemail or I talked to her for a few seconds. And I was like, hey, I'm okay, but I got blown up. Right. And I'm pretty sure I left it on her voicemail on her cell phone. Right. And so 3 or 4 days later, Sergeant Major came running me with a satellite phone, and he's like, you need to call your fucking mother now. And I was like, what did I do? Like, just call your mother. And I was like, so it had been days, right? So the last thing she hears is, I got blown up, but I'm okay. And I also just got blown up. I had severe concussion. I probably didn't even sound real clear or great. And so my mom didn't hear from me for some days, and she called the Pentagon, bro.
Oh yeah. That'll get Sergeant Major Coleman fired up.
Dude, yeah. Old Sergeant Major Coleman, he's standing there with his sat phone, and he's like, you need to call your mother. And I had a lot of love for Sergeant Major Coleman. He's like one of my favorite people. And, he had mixed reviews amongst the soldiers because he was kind of a hard ass, but I loved the guy. Yeah. And, amongst the times him bringing his sat phone, he also checked in on me multiple times a day. He actually they had me on IV the first day, and they didn't have a pisser. Either you're on a catheter or they didn't have a pisser inside. You had to go to a fucking outhouse, outside of the damn hospital. Sergeant Major Coleman carried my IV stand and held my damn hospital gown closed and took me to the pisser so I could hit the head. I just loved that guy. He just loved his soldiers. And so, So anyway, fast forwarding through all that hospital funnies, I went on my R&R, great, visited family, spent 3.5 weeks rather than the standard 2 weeks, because they just wanted me to, I think, be able to be 100% back to duty. I came back. I got back to Firebase Lagman. I went to talked to the first sergeant and commander both. I was like, hey, I'm here. I'm back. They're like, all right, cool. Go get your shit ready to go. I'm like, all right, And don't get me wrong, I had a severe concussion when I got blown up, and I was banged up pretty bad. But I just didn't want to, I did everything in my power. And I was supposed to get checked out when I was back there at an actual VA or medical or military hospital and get returned to duty. I didn't do any of that shit. I just came back and fucking was like, let's just not talk about it. And let's see if we can roll with it. And it worked. So got right back there. So I checked in with them, told them I was back, went back to my tent. I'm like dusting the dust off. Like it hadn't even been 5 minutes. And the talk runner came running up to me. He's like, you need to get to the commander's office right now. And I was like, all right, cool. I mean, I was there 2 seconds ago. So I go running back, and man, I have some brain injury. So sometimes I switch up names and commanders, but I think it was Captain Moyes at the time. And he's like, so you unpacked? And I was like, no, I don't even have my stuff dusted off. I've been gone for a few weeks. Like, I'm about to. And he's like, well, don't unpack. There's a bird inbound right now to pick you up. And I was like, and at the time I was like, oh shit, they're going to make me go to the medical center and get checked out. Fuck. They're going to ruin my deployment,
Right.
And, so he's like, there's a bird inbound for you. And I immediately, I panicked a little bit. And he's like, they just called this task force in to do a very specific operation and probably do some really cool shit. And he's like, you're going to be attached to 120th LRSD. And I was like, okay, sounds cool. So he's like, and when you get back to Kandahar, he's like, we're going to fly you and all your stuff. And he's like, I probably won't see you until we're back in Hawaii. And I was like, okay, I'm halfway through my deployment. So I was like, oh, this is some big shit, right?
Oh yeah.
So before I could even get my stuff packed, I had a couple of brothers were helping me out, run all my stuff out, jumped on this bird. I landed in Kandahar. I went over to scout platoon and hand received a rifle. And then I kind of sat around and didn't know what to do. I kept going back to the headquarters talk, and they're like, well, we don't know how to get you to Bagram. We don't you need to figure it out. They're like, we don't even know what you're doing. And I was like, nobody seems to know what I'm doing. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. All I know is I'm supposed to be in Bagram and I'm supposed to link up with, LRSD. So I was like, I'm going to be proactive. So I went down to the flight line, like headquarters where they book all the flights. And I went down there and I was like, hey, I need a flight to Bagram. And they're like, who are you traveling with? And I was like, nobody. I was like, it's me. And they're like, well, on what authority and blah, blah, blah. They called my the battalion talk, and they were like, is this guy supposed to be in Bagram? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, okay. And there was this random flight with these National Guard guys with this little private plane that just gave me a ride to Bagram. So I basically just found my own fucking way, which is the coolest thing ever. It wasn't like riding a C-130 or a helicopter. I was sitting in leather seats in some weird little civilian plane.
That's cool.
It was super cool. And I was like, I haven't seen a civilian plane since I've been here. Who the hell are you guys? They're like, oh, we do some weird shit. And I'm like, okay, whatever, just get me to Bagram.
Yeah.
So, got over to Bagram, and I found out that what they had basically done is grab 5 of the known trigger pullers throughout the country, guys that they had known had spent a lot of time in a sniper position, had done some things. So there was 2 Marines, there was 3 Army guys. I actually was lucky enough. It was kind of cool. My buddy from 227 Recon was over there. He was one of their snipers. I just knew him because we went to ranges together. And, if I needed something, I'd run across the old quad and grab something from him. We just helped each other out. So we just knew each other a little bit. Cool. He was there. And they basically, it was overseen by a retired Delta Sergeant Major. There was then a civilian contractor. I just called him Delta Dan. He was the baddest fucking dude to walk the face of the planet, probably. Dude was crazy. He wouldn't even go through a chow hall with his weapon at the ready. He was on a different level. But anyway, yeah, they kind of oversaw his program. So they just attached one of us to each team that LRS had. And on historical data, we hunted people that were planting IEDs.
Yeah. Small kill teams.
To try and discourage it. Yeah. It was actually really really smart. IEDs were like cut so dramatically over just a few months of us doing it. It was just insane. So it was actually one of the smartest operations I've ever been part of or seen. It just made sense, you know? So yeah, so I spent almost the rest of my deployment with them. And then LRS was going to be the first group to go back home to Hawaii. So like, hey, we need you to fill out some forms so you can go back with us. And I was like, well, my guys aren't going back yet. They're like, yeah, but you can just go back with us. You know, you won't really have to do anything with us. You'll just, you know, get your stuff back and check in with us every day. You know, you'll be chill. They'll come back in a month or two. And I was like, no. That's not how this is going to work. I like being deployed. I was like, send me back to my unit. They're like, no, come back with us. Like, you just go back a little bit early. And I was like, fuck no. And I like really put my foot down. I was like, I'm going back to my guys. And so I went back to 235 for my last, you know, month or two of them being there. And I think we were some of the last people to get out of there, but I just didn't want to leave before other people I knew, you know, had left. So I went back and finished up with them, and that was pretty much my deployment, pretty much. So
what sticks out, man, during that deployment?
During that deployment, definitely, you know, we had a pretty crazy firefight at one point, one day. And by day, I mean like pretty much the whole day. It was just a crappy, crazy day. But, you know, my IED obviously stood out to me because it definitely changed everything in my life, you know, just perspective. And, you know, it wasn't my first IED, but I was definitely physically different for the rest of my life. You know, I still have some pretty shitty injuries, but, you know, I think I'm better off than a lot of people. So I'm not crying a river. I'm just saying, you know, that changed a lot. You know, little funny stories, but, you know, I loved being deployed, man. There's so many people who are like, just hated it. And I was like, I just loved it. I had so much fun. I was like, dude, we get to play a video game every day of our life and play around with our bros. Right. Like every day, man. Like, how can you complain about that? Why are you homesick? Why are you upset, man? Let's have fun. Like, maybe they shouldn't quite be a year long, because towards the end of the year, you're like, you know, you're dragging a little bit, but I just like, you know, like I said, head down, spirits up, man. Like, keep your spirit high, have fun. Like, have fun every single day, no matter what you were doing. Like, you're on a shitty ass patrol in the middle of winter in Afghanistan. You know, people don't know this unless they've been there usually, but it snows there. And it's like, it turns into this nasty mud. It's cold. It's shitty. And I'm just like, woo, let's have fun. And like, so many people around me were just like shaking their heads, like glaring at me, like, you stop. And I'm like, dude, I don't get it. Like, just have fun with it. I mean, it could be worse. Keep thinking it's bad, you know? So, yeah, I think like besides the IEDs and, you know, funny stories here and there, that there's nothing besides that really sticks out besides just like enjoying the whole thing and like wanting to do it again, you know?
Yeah.
So
you said that was your only deployment? Yep. Did you get out? Did you get out shortly after you got back?
No. So as soon as I got back, you know, because of the multiple IEDs and, you know, I rolled a truck and did some other dumb stuff while I was there and banged myself up. They were like seriously doing medical checks on me when I was getting my in processing back stuff. And so I was in ortho like all the time and realized I had a fractured vertebrae and, you know, really damaged a couple discs and banged up my knee, and I had cracked some ribs, and I just did all sorts of stuff. And so I'm in ortho, and one of the ortho guys was like, this is in 2005, right?
Yeah.
He goes, you're going to be in a wheelchair within 10 years with your injury. And I was like, I'm like shaking my head, and I'm like, dude, I'm banged up, but is there something you're going to do to fix it or not? And he's like, well, no, not really. I'm like, okay. He's like, but you're probably going to be in a wheelchair. You're going to be in a wheelchair within 10 years. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. And he's like, we need to look at doing a P3 profile and putting you out. And I was like, the hell no, you're not. I'm like, I just re-enlisted. No. So I did everything I could to be the first person to go over to 2nd Brigade, because when I re-enlisted to go to the new Stryker Brigade.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was the first NCO from 235. I actually think I was the first NCO from 3rd Brigade. I might not have been from the whole brigade, but I was definitely from 235 to grab a group of soldiers that had done that Stryker contract and go over there. And I fought to get out of there quick as I could. I was like, dude, they keep tracking me and I'm going to end up with a P3 and put out. Yeah. This is not happening. So bailed over to 2nd Brigade. I did great for a few years. My back did have some issues, and but I was still soldiering up, and having fun and doing my dig. And we were about to go to Iraq. We were probably, I want to say, 3 months out from Iraq, and I bumped into that same ortho guy during the screening and deployment screenings and stuff. And he's like, "What are you doing in the Army?" Oh, no. I'm like, yeah, exactly. I instantaneously, I just knew, right then, I felt it. I knew it. I was like, dude, this is it. And he's like, you should be out. And I was like, fuck, bro, I hid from you for 2.5, 3 years. Yeah. I did good at it. So he P3'd me. And I was like, I didn't even know what to do. I was like, can I just shred this fucking thing? And, it doesn't work. So, I ended up in the first sergeant's office, and he's like, at that time, I was a senior squad leader about to take over a platoon, and I was like, just loving life. I fast track promotions, and I was liking where I was at, and I was about to get to deploy again. I was about to get to go to Iraq. I always had this thing where I wanted to be able to say I went to both, not because one over the other or anything. I just wanted to be able to say I at least went to both once, and, so I ended up in the first sergeant's office, and he's like, dude, you're done. They're med boarding you. And he's like, and I was like, I don't want to get out of the Army. And he's like, you're not getting MMRB. He's like, you're getting med boarded out. He's like, they harshly gave you a P3, and all your stuff, you're getting out. He's like, what I can do though, he's like, we're going to talk to Sergeant Major and the battalion commander. We're going to see if we can keep you in if you want to be the rear detachment commander. And I was like, you want me to do what? Crappy desk job with no. So anyway, he's like, it's the only way for you to be in the Army for any longer than 90 days, man. And I was like, fuck it. I was like, I'll do that at least. At least I can still be in the Army, for a little bit longer. I just did not want to get out, And so I was rear detachment commander for almost their entire deployment. And right before they got home, the big boy Army, heads were like, nope, you can't stay in anymore. So I finished up my med board right towards the end of their deployment and headed back home. So
what transition issues did you have, man?
I don't have any horror stories about it. I did one, I just wasn't in the Army anymore. And I loved it. I loved being a soldier. I loved being able to say what I did. And I loved leading soldiers. I loved my job. It was full blown adrenaline every day of my life. There's those days where you're sitting in the rear and, scrubbing floors and toilets and cleaning weapons and, rear D stuff, and I would still find a way to do wild and fun stuff. So it was this great rush of life. One, your job has a purpose and I don't know. I really lost that excitement in life. So I came back, and I just didn't know what to do at all. Mm-hmm. That was probably my biggest transition. It's just I wasn't a soldier anymore. It was just what do I do now? I thought I was going to live my life as a soldier and die a soldier. Yeah. I was I'm going to end up, capping out probably at E7 because I don't want to go any higher than that. I just want to stay with soldiers, and stay on the ground. And, I'll spend every year I can. And at some point I won't, I'll be done. That's kind of how I thought about life when it came to my career. So,
how did you get how'd you get the adrenaline back in your life, man? I know that's important.
So I have to move back a little bit to get to that. So when I was about 4 or 5 years old, I started Taekwondo. It was great as a kid. Got a lot of discipline. Got some great body mechanics and some beginning on martial arts and combatives. And then in high school, I started boxing and kickboxing a little bit. And then one of the first days when I went to Alpha Company 235, I met this guy named David Fraze, like one of my best friends in the Army who's not with us anymore. He was a KIA in our deployment. And like the first day there, Fraze took me into the courtyard and he was like, "We're going to grapple." And he like dumped me on my head and choked me unconscious 3 or 4 times. And then I know you know him. So, like directly after he asked me if I was a Christian. We talked about faith and God, and that was Fraze's thing, So we talked a little bit about like the balance between being a soldier and being a Christian, and he was just one of my friends from then on. And at that point, like I had seen the UFC before, and so I'd seen the Gracies and like jiu-jitsu and all this stuff, but I hadn't done it yet. I'd never wrestled before. Actually, I did wrestle. I take that back. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, I wrestled for a week. My mom thought I would get hurt, so I didn't do wrestling anymore. So I started seeking out getting in the combatives program. So I was at the combatives gym every day that I could be. Any moment I could, I was there. Got my combatives cert. And then right when I got back from deployment, I was like, I need to do more of this besides just us Army guys choking each other out and beating each other up. So I started searching what was available in Hawaii, and I realized that Helson Gracie himself lived in Hawaii. And I was like, I didn't fucking know that. And for us that don't know the Gracie family real well, Helson actually coached Hoist during the UFC. It's his older brother. He was a 22-year undefeated world champion. Like, he's one of the baddest dudes out of that generation of fighters, And so I went to one of his gyms in Hawaii, and I like immediately enjoyed Hawaii a million times better. I was on the mats every night. All of a sudden I was like, I had local friends, not just Army friends, I started enjoying the island more. I was training all the time. Like, I had an amazing brotherhood at this jiu-jitsu gym. And I started competing a lot in jiu-jitsu there. And then when I got back, I didn't miss a beat. There's so many guys I see, and it breaks my heart when I see this. They're out of the Army and they quit being a soldier. Like, I haven't quit being a soldier, bro. I wake up at like 4:30 or 5 every morning. I'm ready to go. Like, I get up, I start doing my day. I still hit the gym. So literally I got back at home. I got back into home at like midnight, maybe 2 o'clock in the morning. The next morning I was at the gym lifting. That night I hit a boxing gym that had a jiu-jitsu program and was training there. And that's just what I did. Like, I really just dove into that because it's like the closest thing I could find that was like, I can't go get in gunfights anymore. They frown upon that in America, I can't do that unless I'm overseas. So, I couldn't be a soldier. I couldn't lead bad dudes, and, boots and dirt in different countries anymore. Like, so I really dove into boxing and MMA and jiu-jitsu, and I slowly started coaching a little bit, started helping with some kids' bully-proofing programs. And then I found a Hawaii vet who happened to be a black belt from Helson in Hawaii. And I had known about him, but we'd only like crossed paths for like a split moment before. And he literally opened up a gym like within, I want to say 6 months of me getting back out of the Army. And I ended up teaching for him full time and just really dedicating my life to that. I started fighting. And mind you, like I also had this thing in the back of my head of this ortho guy. You're going to be in a wheelchair in 10 years. Yeah. And I was like, there's no fucking way, bro. I'm going to do everything that actually has the difference. Am I like some days, every day, no matter what, the first hour of my life is rough with my back. I have like a stretching routine, all this stuff to get moving. Mm-hmm. But I like fight through it. I have to train differently. I'm in physical therapy and yoga and freaking all this crazy stuff all the time just to stay mobile, but I still find a way to train. I still, like, no matter what, I'm not going to be in that wheelchair. I'm not going to end up just being a schlep. I was not programmed to do that. I wasn't programmed to take off my uniform and just shut down, man. Like, you know, all being a soldier is all about driving on and finding the next mission. And so my next mission was to, like, help people through coaching, do some mentoring. Along the way, the first gym I actually walked into, I ended up coaching for like 3 years, not including the other jiu-jitsu gym. Yeah. And funny story, I met this kid, and I say kid lightly because if you saw him, you'd be like, Jesus, that's not a kid. He's probably like 6'2" and like 240, and he's probably 13 or 14 years old. And, oh man, he's a hoss. Yeah. He was a champion wrestler in high school at heavyweight. I started coaching him in jiu-jitsu, and he was kind of like me in high school. Like, you know, always in a little bit of trouble, struggling in high school, not because he wasn't smart, just because he was a little rowdy, you know? And so I used to literally, like, pick him up at his house, bring him to training, like, talk him down from doing stupid stuff at school all the time. And then he turned 18, he graduated high school, and he's like, I'm going to the Army. And I was like, really? And he's like, fuck yeah, man. And I was like, all right, cool. So I kind of talked to him a lot, mentored him through it. He went in the Army. I told him not to follow completely in my footsteps. He blatantly ignored me. He got blown up really bad, tore his insides up, like got banged up bad. Came back home, and I mean, within a day of him coming back home, we were hanging out and, you know, catching up because it is different. I'm like, you used to be a kid. I remember when you were like 8th grade or freshman year is when I met you. And now all of a sudden you're a combat veteran with a Purple Heart, grown ass man. And he didn't get smaller, by the way. He's still a monster. So, anyway, great stories is I married him. I'm a minister. I married him and his wife 2 weeks ago.
Cool, man.
Yeah. Cool. So it's always funny how things like wrap around in life. But, you know, my transition was a lot of stuff like that, talking to people about, you know, soldiering and doing something else and, you know, making yourself better through different options, you know? Right. So I really, you know, my transition was a lot around training, you know, and finding a way to still have some form of combat, you know?
Yeah. When did
it wasn't deadly, but it was good.
When was there a shift somewhere in the, you know, in your transition where everything just kind of came, like, lined up perfect and you knew exactly, you know, what you needed to do and to get you where you are now and the future? Was there a point in time, you know, that you can actually mark on the wall?
You know, yeah, because that initial transition all the way up until about 5 years ago was purely like just about me and training and doing everything I could focus on, like me still being a soldier still, you know, but I wasn't living life for anything higher besides just let's fight, you know, not like getting a street fight, but, you know, let's train, let's, you know, try and accomplish some things in that aspect of life. And, you know, 5 years ago, I randomly had somebody go, "Hey, I'm pregnant." And I was like, "Oh, that's different." Was that a surprise? I'm in my mid-30s. It's kind of a surprise. And I'm going to be a dad, you know? And so that I had to reevaluate the way I did everything in my life. I literally, we were about 5 months pregnant, I want to say. Maybe 5 or 6, definitely not ready to have a kid pop out. I had this huge fight in Montana, title fight. I was fighting a dude that had just done, he's like 6-0 in kickboxing, and he's like 3-0 in MMA. It was a title fight. It was a bigger opportunity, a bigger promotion. So I go out there, fight my fight. I'm at the promotions after party, getting checks signed and shaking hands and kissing babies, all that fun stuff, you know. And I got a phone call that we're in labor. Yeah, I did win.
Okay, you're kissing babies, so you must have won.
Right? Yeah, I won.
Man.
It was So every single one of my fights has ended in the first round except for one. And I only have one loss on my record. And that guy is, I believe, ranked number 4 in the world in the UFC right now. And he's looking at a title shot. So that's the only guy I've ever lost to. And I've never been out of the second round until last year. I had a boxing fight with the big puffy gloves, you know,
Right.
and I just couldn't knock the dude out until the second round. But then I knocked him out like very beginning of the second round. But so I've seen one second round. So yeah, I had a great fight in Montana. You know, real one-sided, choked the guy out in, I think, maybe 2 minutes or so. And, you know, all of a sudden we're at this after party and I get a phone call and we're in labor. And I drove to Montana. There's no reason to fly. Like, I like to have my own car there. Mm-hmm. I either spend a couple hours getting to the airport, fly for a few hours, or I can just drive. So, you know, it's like a 10 or 11 hour drive. So I'm like jumping in my car at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, driving back here because, I think my kid's about to be born, you know, and it ended up being false labor. Thank God. We actually had like 2 or 3 false labors, but, so I came back here, and at that moment when I got back, I was like, I am not fighting for a while. Like, I'm just done. You know, I can't have like something I'm really committed to that I can't shift. I can't call in sick to a fight. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you know, things happen with kids. So I quit for, a while, like a really long while. I think 3 or 3.5 years. 3.5 years I quit. I actually quit training too. I got kind of chubby, got skinny little arms. And I just turned into a dad, man. I always had this high misconception about parenting. You know, I thought that, you know, dad just kind of supported mom and mom took care of everything, you know, and it didn't go that way. I all of a sudden realized that I was the parent, not just the dad, you know?
Yeah.
So, I was staying home with my kid. I was taking care of him all the time. I was, you know, especially when they're young, you know, like you don't sleep through the night, and I was spending all the nights with them. And I was also kind of in a not so healthy relationship. It wasn't real good. So, that ended. I'll be real honest in the nicest way possible, because I won't say anything bad about her, but I wasn't heartbroken. I was totally just fine. I was like, that's over. And now on to figuring out like solo parenting, basically, you know, like, yeah, I got to raise my kid now, you know. She still sees him too. Like, it's not like she's not in the picture at all, but so we co-parent, but you know, in my household, it's me. So that was a huge transition in my life, in which I think was like super positive, man. Like, I started living life not for myself anymore, or not for just being a soldier and for soldiers around me. You know, I was living my life for a family and for a little person. And I've since then just pretty much dedicated my life to my son, you know, and it's been amazing. There's nothing more fulfilling that I've came across in my life. You can raise your hand with a belt around your waist and a cage and have all that wonderful glory and great feeling, because it's amazing. Let me tell you what, that's an amazing feeling. You can't replicate it, but it comes nowhere near having like a little mini me running around and parenting, man. It's challenging, but it is a blast. It's so much fun. Me and my kid have a lot of fun together.
Yeah, man. We were talking. You said it was like, he goes, you know, fatherhood and, you know, was a religious experience for me.
Yeah.
And I thought that's amazing, man. Especially like, you know, it by no means am I saying like, you know, hey, Seth will never be a father. You know what I mean? But knowing how you were, you know what I mean? To where you got now. And, you know, the level, like you said, man, you know, I think you said it, you know, correctly, where it's like, you know, it was all about you, the selfish nature of, and then all of a sudden it just changed.
Yeah. I mean, that's
powerful, man.
It was super. And I'm like happy I like saw that, you know. I think I was talking to you the other day about it, and I was like, you know, a all these guys, they win a UFC fight or they like win this big boxing championship. And they're like, I did it for the fans and I did it for my family. And I'm like, no, you didn't. You did it for yourself. Like, it is literally like the most selfish sport in the planet is combative sports. Like, there isn't a team. Yeah, you have coaches and all this stuff behind you, but you're fighting for you, man. Like that end of the road or that end of the fight, like glory and feeling and all this stuff is for you, you know? And, you know, so I felt like I was definitely pretty selfish natured until my kid. In a lot of ways, you know, I'd do anything for anybody and help anybody out, but I was definitely not living my life for anybody else, you know, not in a relationship, not in anything, you know. I was still living my life for me, you know, and all of a sudden I had a kiddo, and I was totally living my life for him, and had given up it's never about what's better for me now. It's just whatever's better for him, you know, whatever I have to give up, you know, it's more rewarding than anything else. It's great. Like, you know, and I got a great kid. He's super cool. I got really lucky that he likes things that I like. You know, we pretty much play Nerf guns and run around the house and kill zombies. Like, it's almost like the Army again, except for it's invisible zombies and Nerf guns. So it's a little different, but you know.
Well, the nice thing is, man, it sounds like to me, like, you know, just the natural nature of you is just coming out. And I mean, you got a best friend there, man. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? That's going to be, you know, I think we talked about, you know, like the sidekick, you know, at some point, you know, because he's going to be getting into things, you know, later on. And we talked about, like, you know, hey, what are you going to do? I'm going to go here and do this. All right, I got your bag. I'll drive. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, you know, I'm sidekick, bro.
Yeah.
That's going to be exciting, man. I'm going to be happy to see that.
Yeah, I am too. I'm actually like, you know, there's a lot of parents that like fear teenage years, and I have to think about them because, you know, a lot of times parents become not as cool when you're a teenager as when you're a toddler, you know. Like right now, I'm pretty cool to them, you know.
Right.
I'm like, you're like 16. I'm not going to be as cool. Like cars and girls are going to be way cooler. But, you know, I've thought about like the type of relationship to have now to ensure that I'm still kind of cool at 16.
Yeah.
You know,
where
like we still do cool stuff together, you know, and that kind of goes back to where I said water the plant, man. Like, I dive so much into whatever he wants to do, rather it's something that's about me or not, that I feel like if I carry that on, whatever he's doing at 16, I'm still just going to be taking part in and being a sidekick, like you said, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, man, you're gonna be living some good times. Good times. Yeah. Okay, so what does this look like, dude, for like a single dad? You're going to like play dates and stuff. What's this, man?
So I have to like clear this one up because I'm not really a single dad anymore. But I'm going to throw some relationship advice out there for guys, right? So I started coaching this girl, right? Boxing. We had a mutual friend. He's like, you should try boxing with Seth. She's like, all right. And, you know, and there's some other girl in the gym was like, stay away from him. He's an asshole. I don't know why she would think that, but, you know, she decided to ignore her and started training boxing. And she was like, literally like my best friend, not because we did everything together, but because she was like my shoulder. And like, especially during the pregnancy in the first year or so of my kid being a kid, and I was in this ugly relationship and stuff, like, man, I needed a shoulder a lot, you know, and I really didn't have any time to like talk to anybody else. I was either at work for an hour or two, working some clients and teaching some classes, or I was home parenting. Like there wasn't any other life for me, you know? So we became really close and really good friends. She's like my best friend in the world. And so, you know, a few months after me and the mom split thing, we were just texting back and forth and talking, and she's like, when are we training again? And I was like, well, we'll train again right after we have dinner. She's like, all right, cool. And like, we've hung out several times, like, right. So we've hung out several times. It wasn't like it was random. And like the first time I was like, oh, you want to do something? Like, I mean, she'd been to my house before. She's known my son since he was born, you know?
Yeah.
We have tons of mutual friends. Like we see each other all the time. Like we don't just like train here and there, you know? So, the next morning I wake up and she shoots me a text and she's like, hey, I'm a little confused. And I was like, hey, what's up? And she's like, did you ask me out on a date? And I was like, if you're saying yes, then yes, it was. But if you don't want to, then no, I was just wanting to hang out. And she's like, no, that's good. Let's go out. So we have been together ever since. And our relationship really hasn't changed. We're still just like best friends, man. Like, we're engaged now. We're getting married next August. It'll be the anniversary of our first date, and we're getting married in Mexico. So I'm not really a single dad anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, she finds the perfect balance in being a significant other to me with me having a kid. Like, she doesn't try and overparent, but she's there like to help out, and she's great. And Cannon loves her. He thinks she's like the coolest person in the world. Like, one of the funny things he does is like, so me and her still spar. So she doesn't fight actively, but she's been training for years now. She's freaking really good. And, so she spars with me sometimes. We get some rounds. And so Cannon's been there before when we were sparring, and he like cheers for her and not for me, man. He's like, go Crystal, get him. And I'm like, hey, bro, like, you're supposed to be on my team. He's like jumping up and down, go Crystal, get him. And I'm like, dang it, bro.
He's looking out for the ladies, man. He's going to be a ladies man.
Oh, absolutely, bro. Like, he's definitely a little ladies man. But
well, he is a cutie, man. So you might need to figure that out now.
Right. I just, everybody's like, how are you going to deal with girls? And, oh, man, my mom and future mother-in-law are going to hate hearing this one. But I'm just throwing a condom dispenser on his wall, bro. Like the truck stop ones, you just don't have to put a quarter in. I'm like, look, like, I know it's going to happen. Just wrap that thing up. All right. Like, you got to accept some things. So that'll be my, like, terrible parenting / don't have one young, don't get the ickies. Like, so.
Hey, so when you hang out with him and his buds, man, what do you do?
So,
because that dynamic seems different to me. Like, because I see mothers at the park with like her kid and like her friend's kid, and it looks different. So I don't know what it looks like with a dad. It's just that's all he does.
It's been weird for me. We talked about that. Like, it's everything I didn't think it was going to be when it comes to other parents and like group setting things. Like, I do a ton of stuff with him. So he goes to swimming lessons. He's done some like toddler gym things. We've done some book clubs, all this other stuff. Like, I'm always trying to find kid activities. Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, especially during the day, I'm the only dad, right? And a lot of the times it's like, the stay-at-home mom driving a minivan with the kids, and I don't necessarily look like or appear to be the normal, I'm using the term normal loosely, but I don't look like their dads.
Right. Right.
I mean, I have American Patriot tattooed across my fingers. My hands are tattooed. I'm sleeved up. I'm tattooed basically from the shoulders down. Like, I'm also not like, the average guy in a polo shirt, like I look different than them. And I was like, man, all the moms are going to want to talk to me because I'm different. It's the opposite. It is totally the opposite. I don't get hit on. No, that doesn't happen. All the moms don't circle me or around me and start talking to me because I'm the only dad there. Right. They all like just kind of give me a weird look. Like, who's that guy? Why is he got that kid? Because it's my kid, man. I'm a stay-at-home parent. That's why. Like, I don't drive a minivan. I'm not, I don't have a dad bod. I'm sorry. Like, I hit the gym for a few hours every day. Like, I'm sorry. I don't look like the rest of them. And so I told you this earlier, like, when we're young, we have pickup lines, right?
Yeah.
For girls. the one-liners and the ways to break the ice. I have one-liners to break the ice with moms. Like, I have to, it's the only way for them to start like talking to me like a normal parent, which I actually really like parent conversations,
Yeah.
It's helpful. It's beneficial. Like, it's great to talk to other parents because a ton of the time you're going through the exact same things. A ton of the time they're going through something you haven't seen before, but next week you're going to, like,
So
it's just fun.
So what does this look like, man? Do you come up and like, so here you are, do you come up and like, and just go like full science on them? The flu outbreak is said to be increased by 3% this year. Did you hear that? And they're like, "What?"
Right. I try and start with the kids because kids love me, man, because I look different.
Right.
They don't freak out about tattoos and looking different. They just think I'm different. So they're like, "What up, man?" And so I'm always like, I interact with the kids right away.
Yeah.
And then, I kind of go from there and like then lead it into the parents.
A little disarming.
Yeah, a little disarming.
Yeah.
They see like I'm like funny and ha, and I laugh and joke with the kids, and I'm not like something scary, and all of a sudden they break down a little bit, and then I talk to them about something random that's going on with their kid, Yeah. So yeah, I think it was last Friday. Every Friday we have swim lessons. So last Friday there was this little girl, and she sat right next to me, and mom was like trying to go all the way to the other side of the pool, but this little girl sits right next to me, and so mom didn't have a choice. So Cannon's talking to the little girl for a second, and they're about to start running and playing and getting ready for swim lessons, and so mom sits down next to me, and her daughter had Crocs on, and I'm a proud Croc wearer. I wear Crocs like every day of my life. I live in Crocs. Okay.
They don't even make them anymore.
Yeah, they do.
No, I thought they stopped making them. Did you supply up?
No, I did supply up during Amazon Prime days. Just like a month or two ago, I bought a few, but
you might want to look that up, man.
That. Oh man, that'll be a travesty in my life. I garden, and so somebody told me they're like, these Crocs are great for gardening, and I was like, okay, and I put them on. I was like, these things are weird, and then like a week later, I just never took them off. I was like, these are the greatest things ever. They're like, they get dirty, I throw them in the dishwasher. Like, they're comfy. Like, they take zero effort to put on and take off. Like, these things are great.
Well, dude, do you remember the one-piece slippers that the Afghanis wore?
Oh yeah.
And we always just like laughing, like, oh, look at that, wearing their slippers around. And it was molded from one piece of. It wasn't like ours, like 2 pieces, 4 pieces.
No, it was one piece,
one solid piece, like molded.
Yeah,
but I bet they were super comfortable, dude. They would run up mountains in that stuff.
I was just gonna say, they also ran like freaking Olympic athletes. Yeah. They could run faster than anything I've ever seen in my life with those little slippers up and down mountains. Yeah. So obviously they had something going on smart with those things. So yeah. So as this mom, I'm like, her daughter had these like My Little Pony or something like that, like Crocs. Mm-hmm. And Cannon had his Crocs because Cannon likes to have Crocs too. Like, we have some matching camo ones, and that day in particular, he had his Minion Crocs on. So I was like, oh look, and I was like, see, Cannon has Minion ones, and so like dinner. Her mom just started talking. She's like, oh, Crocs are really easy for kids because you don't have to help them. Yeah. And I was like, yeah. Then we started talking about parenting stuff. And now we're like buddies. And she's like, hi, Seth. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's just, you got to break that ice with them. You got to have some pickup lines, not to take them home, just to like break the ice and get a conversation going, So.
Now, I imagine you're pretty good with that, man. Cause it seems like, I don't think of you as like the dad, like, hey, come here, blow your nose, and you're checking the color of it and all that kind of stuff and testing it. But I imagine that you know everything that's going on with him and the changes that occur.
Yeah. And
and just ask questions to get, because you're not going to know.
No,
so
you don't. There's a ton of books out there on parenting, and none of them teach you about parenting or what's going to happen for real. Right. Like, they just do things that's one off. It's because they haven't been, they don't have fear because nothing's taught them fear yet. You know, they don't know, nothing's taught them anything yet. So they're just like raw. They just do what comes to them as a person. Every person's different. So, you know, little man just does stuff sometimes. I'm like, I don't even know what you're doing yet. I have to figure it out. And two, like, I didn't read about this. And, you know, I did take some parenting classes. I spent a lot of time with some successful parents that I knew that had older kids that like talked to me about some great ways of going about situations. And, you know, they're like, you know, every situation is different, but you'll find something similar and this might help, you know? So I've spent a lot of time dedicating to like being a good parent, not just like making sure he doesn't die, which I feel like is a ton of parenting, make sure they don't die, you know, and then, but there's a lot more to it to like actually like, you know, water the plant, you know?
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time just researching and learning and, you know, studying him a lot too, to not just function as a parent. I want to do more than just, you know, get him by. I want him to flourish, you know?
Yeah.
So,
damn, bro. Yeah, you just said that gave me goosebumps, man. That's good. No, you said flourish, man. And I think that's the big thing. It's like, you can't just give your kid exactly what, you know, just the bare minimum. You know, you've got to put, you got to put good things in front of them. I mean, that's what we try to do here with veterans, man. We just try to put a good episode in front of them so they got something that maybe they can grow by. You know, for you, you're doing it all the time. And that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah. I'm very, very happy where you're at.
I am too, to be honest. Everything seems to be not perfect, but it's pretty fucking great. Yeah. You know, I'm engaged to my best friend I'm just lucky she's also smoking hot, you know? So I got super lucky. We have a great relationship. I got a great little healthy kid, you know? Things are smooth. Things are good, you know, just kind of enjoying every day as it comes and growing, you know, as fast as I can to keep up with the little guy. Yeah. And, you know, doing a little bit of schooling, and I don't think we brought that up, but I'm also trying to finish my degree.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I didn't, at this point in my life, I'm like, I'm not going to get a job probably from whatever I'm doing, but I can't sit there and tell my son when he's a teenager, he needs to focus on going to college when I didn't finish up college. So I really just want to put a piece of paper in a really big frame and put it on the wall and be like, that's what you have to do. I did it. You have to do it too. Yeah. Like, you know, so lead by example, right?
Yeah.
Lead by example.
Go, brother.
That was simultaneous, bro.
I know. That's crazy.
Yep.
Now Seth, you're all over it, man. You're all over it.
I appreciate that.
All over it, brother.
Cool.
So what's your lessons learned, man, for the veterans out there? What do you got for them?
Lessons learned, man. Don't get out and quit being a soldier. Like, if you did good at it and it worked good for you and things were going good, then keep doing it. Like, don't be like, I'm not a soldier anymore, so I'm just never going to go to the gym.
Yeah.
Like, dude, physical fitness and doing physical things was part of your life. And that, like, don't just do that transition and like try and go to like a completely different life. Like, I kept the good, and, you know, I'm one of the guys that just absolutely love the Army every day. I love almost everything about it. The military, like, I'm like, let's do it again. If there was a way I could do it again, man, I would be there again. You know,
Old man's
like you're telling me about that book you're reading.
Yeah, it's nuts.
If it's 65, there's a way for you to give me a 20-year-old body of mine and do it all over again. I'm in, bro. Yeah, let's go have some fun.
I do it too.
I'll tear another body up. Let's do it. You know, so. You know, don't take what you had that was good, that helps you be a healthy, good person, and keep doing it.
Yeah.
You know, like I told you, I got out of the Army. The next morning I was at the gym. Like, I'm not going to like quit being a healthy person. That stuff's good for your mind, body, and soul. Like, I'm still in the gym. Find some good places to like find brotherhoods, you know? I'm at a jiu-jitsu gym now a little bit. Is, you know, the summer's always hard, but it's in the winter, so I'll probably be there a ton more. But there's a bunch of vets there, man. Like, I mean, a ton of vets, law enforcement, that sort of stuff. Like, hang out with those guys again. It'll still, it gives you a sense of like being at home, at mom's, dinner table, right? You got comfortability, that thing that's, part of what's bred into you. Be around the same type of people, man. Like don't transition and try and in this one day transition, just live a different life. Like take some of the good stuff and keep rolling with it. That's definitely what's worked for me. There's tons of things that don't work for me and work for others, but that's what I did. I just kept living the same life. I just don't strap up boots no more,
Well, hey man, let's talk about doing an episode on just training.
Absolutely.
Are you down for that?
I am absolutely down for that.
I think that'd be good, man, especially for some veterans that, they want to get in there. They don't want to go and be the Midwest champion. Like you are. They just want to stay healthy. Maybe they want to get their mind around it because they know maybe one of their son or their daughter is going to maybe want to get into it.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, let's do that. Let's get an episode. Let's give some veterans out there that don't have the knowledge, and let's give it to them.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
Sweet. Well, hey man, I want this is what I want to hear. I want to hear the A bad monkey story that you keep alluding to.
Oh man,
can you tell the story without it in a good way? Is there a good way to tell it?
Yeah. There's a little bit of detail. It's unavoidable, but it is it's a great story.
I can only imagine with a monkey, man.
Right. So, we're in Asadabad, I believe, and it was so mountain surrounded. We usually had like a local national, like, shopping area. They'd bring in, bootleg DVDs and knives and just weird stuff, and we had nothing to spend our money on. So we'd always go out there. Well, in Asadabad, they actually had a couple of them that were inside the fob because there was nowhere really for them to go outside. So they were like regulars, right? So I had just gotten there, and one of them had a monkey, and I've always had this fascination with monkeys. Monkeys are freaking cool, man. So I see this monkey, and he's just hanging out in a cage, and I was like, I'm like talking to him about his monkey, and I was like, you selling your monkey? He's like, no, it's kind of my monkey. And I'm like, dude, you're an Afghan guy. Like, everything's for sale. Okay. It's just, we got to talk about the price. So, he originally tells me it's some crazy amount of money. And I was like, man, you really don't want to sell him, do you? And he's like, no. And I was like, I'd really like to have a monkey. Mind you, I have absolutely no plan of how to deal with this monkey. Like, if I buy him, like, I'm in Afghanistan, it's not like I can bring him home, but all those things are far from my mind. I'm not thinking rationally at all. I'm just thinking about having a monkey. So I finally get him talked down, to where it's a functional amount of money. I think he wanted like $30, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe $20, something like that. So, I go, okay, I got this monkey, right? And I bring him back to the tent, and everybody's like, you bought a monkey. That's crazy. That's cool. And then, yeah. So we were in like at that point in time, we were in just like one of those big tents that housed like, 20 people, and we're, cot after cot. We were nuts and button there, Yeah. So, there was no dividers or anything. So his monkey's just like open in this this tent. And he was cool for like the first 5 minutes. And then he screeched a little bit, and I was like, you can get kind of loud, can't you? And then like he's shaking his cage a little bit, and I was like, you seemed so chill in your cage earlier. I'm like, okay. And then he started jacking off. And I was like, well, everybody does it, like whatever. But then he was like really aggressively masturbating, like scary, like screeching and jerking off. And like, it was traumatizing, man. It was traumatizing. And then whenever he would finish, he would sling it at everybody in the tent. Oh, it was disgusting. And he just wouldn't quit doing it. Like, the guy had the sex drive of, a porn star with Viagra. It was insane. Like, he just kept going, and it just never stopped. And so the next morning, it was a really, really long evening and night.
Yeah,
Okay?
no doubt.
Everybody hated me for a little bit, and like what the fuck is the matter with you? Why did you buy a monkey? I'm like, you guys thought it was cool too at first. They're like, fuck no, we didn't do it. Like, so mad at me, right? There's some monkey jerking off and slinging semen at them, and they're not happy with me. Just easy to point the finger at me. So immediately the second, they opened up the locals to their shopping little area in the morning, I was there at the monkey, and I was like, here, dude, I'm going to give you your monkey back. And he's like, mind you, he sold me like he didn't want to sell this monkey, right? So I go to give it back to him. He's like, that's your monkey now. You bought it. And I was like, whoa, hold on. No, you're taking your monkey back. Right. And he would not take it back. And I was like, dude, you got to, I can't have the monkey. Like, we can't just set it free in the mountains. Okay. And it's not about it's not happening. Like, you're taking the monkey. So I then had to pay him twice as much as I paid for the monkey to take the monkey back.
Oh, dude, are you serious?
Oh yeah.
Dude, the Kunar has no return policy, dude, I guess. That's crazy.
No return policy. So he had quite the little hustle. He got a break from his crazy masturbating monkey, and he got paid to take a break, and then he got paid to get him back so he can probably do it again to some other idiot that is at Sadabad for a week or two.
Maybe he was it hungry?
Dude, I tried to feed him all sorts of stuff. So,
dude, I bet he had that monkey strung out on something. That was a game. I bet every night he probably gives him a little opium, help him sleep, and he didn't have it. And he just went ape shit.
He was mad.
Or monkey shit.
Yeah, monkey shit.
Or monkey something else.
that was a wild night, man. That was an unforgettable deployment moment.
Dude, that's craziness.
Oh, it was absolutely craziness. So,
dude, I'll tell you what though, you're lucky you didn't get bit, because if you would have gotten bitten, they give you a bunch of shots in your stomach, right in your abdomen. It's a whole series of them, man. We had a guy that didn't redeploy with us because he had to stay and get his shots before he could leave.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
He got bit by a monkey?
Yeah, I got bit by a little monkey, man. We were over at the governor's compound towards the end of the deployment. We had like a week and a half left. He got bit. So it's like a rabies treatment or something like that.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
As tattooed as I am, shots freak me out.
That's nuts.
And taking one in the stomach, I would just be traumatized.
Yeah.
I'd be no. And then also, not being able to go back home, right? When you're supposed to. I'm supposed to be going home.
That would suck.
Yeah.
Well, hey, brother, what do you got for safety brief, man, for the veterans, man? Send them home. Send them on the weekend with something to keep them safe or fired up. Or motivated.
More fired up, more motivated. Can we take a break before we do that one?
Sure. Yeah.
Just take a little 5.
Let's take a break.
All right, cool.
All right, here we are. We are back. Seth, are you with us?
I am here.
What do you got for the old L Safety Briefo?
The L Safety Briefo. These were one of my favorite times in the Army. I only got to give a couple. Usually when I was letting my squad go or something like that, and they were either bouncing out early, or we had a project and everybody else already had theirs or something like that. So, but I always love safety briefs. They're funny, they're fun. You never say something in a safety brief because it hasn't happened, right?
Right.
It's like a warning label, So anyway, as they all start, if everybody could take a knee, huddle up, get around, make yourself comfortable. We're going to be here for a second. Let's do the basics. So don't do drugs. Man, you're going to get a piss test. You might not get one this Monday morning, but you're going to get one, right? And also, it's just not good for you. So let's stay away from the drugs. Alcohol. The vast majority of us like to have a few beers here and there. Let's keep it in moderation. Let's not get overboard. And let's also not drive even after one and you're done driving. Okay. We have the buddy system, right? So you're with your buddy or you're wrong. Okay. Or you're at home. Okay. And so let's say you're downtown. All you're going to do is be there for your buddy. If he starts getting into a fight, you're going to try to get him out of the fight. But if he's in a fight, you're in a fight. Say, you always come home together and come home okay, right? Next, let's wrap it up. Okay, we don't need anything unplanned, and we don't need any of those little buggies on our wee-wees, right? So let's wrap it up, okay? Also, check the IDs of these girls, all right? Some of them think that or look like they are 20, but they're really 16. So check an ID, okay? It's okay to do that. Hookers are cheaper than divorces, so keep that in mind. On a real serious note, though, let's make sure you dedicate some time with your family, whether that's calling back home or that's taking your wife out to dinner or taking your kid to the playground. Let's have some family time this weekend. Let's do something healthy for yourself, whether that's read a book or go on a run or go to the gym. Do something healthy for yourself, and make sure you're taking your time and enjoying it and appreciating what you have, because there's a lot of our brothers that don't have time anymore. Besides that, keep your spirits up and your head down.
Seth, that's excellent, brother.
Cool. I kind of liked it.
Yeah. Hey, man, thanks for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me, man. It was super cool this week to talk to you a little bit, catch up on some old times, and it was cool to do this podcast, and I hope we get to do more of them soon.
Yeah, like I said, man, I'll be up there this winter getting some snowboarding in. So maybe we'll do this. Let's do this workout one while I'm there. Let's get it done, and then we can record it there.
Outstanding. I have a guest room, so
okay,
you'll be squared away when you're here.
All right, sounds good.
But
brother.
you have to make your cot in the morning. All right.
I will. I'll roll my bag up.
Right.
All right, Seth. Hey, thanks for coming on, brother, and you have an excellent weekend. I'll talk to you later.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Hey, everybody. That was Seth Rodenbaugh, and excellent episode. Hey, like Seth said, take care of yourselves. All right, don't neglect yourself. Spend some time with your family. Don't lock yourself away in the garage or down the basement. Spend some time with your family. And, like I said on Wednesday, call your moms. Call your mom up. Call your dad, too. All right? Call them up and give them a little bit of your time. All right, hey, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. And, hey, stay blessed. Heart of a Volunteer, copyright 2019.